Hi, everybody. Welcome to the World View. My name is Chris Greco. I will be your host for the next 30 minutes, talking about different parts of the world, how they're covered in the media, how they're not covered in the media, and how things can affect the United States that you don't really think can affect us, even though it occurs in a country that may be as far away as half a world away or more. So I have to take a look at that, and actually, it would never be more than a half world away. Because, anyways, sorry, getting into data here. So basically, what happens is that last week and last shows we talked about 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon, and we talked about 6 degrees and how that works and all that. But now we have 6 degrees until 6 degrees until China, and basically what we're doing is we're focusing on countries that are being addressed in the media. But yet there seems to be this missing link between that country and China. And in many situations, you don't even need 6 points of level here. You can go directly to China. So that's what we're going to try to do today. We're going to focus on some areas that have been either not addressed in the media or addressed in the media, but they've left out this very important connection to China and how China is being very pervasive. I know for a fact that people that probably watch this show are getting sick and tired of me talking about China. China this, China that, China this, China that. I'm telling you right now that somebody needs to address this. And somebody needs to put a stop to China being as pervasive as they are in different types of countries. And the problem is that we are, and this is my opinion, we're spending a lot of time on domestic aspects, and that's okay, and I get that. But basically what's happening is we're spending a lot of money on domestic aspects, a lot of money. And what's happening is that that money is not being used to try to help develop other countries. Even though we may be trying to do both, basically we're going broke doing it. And basically what's happening is, and what I'm going to bring out in this presentation today, is that China is being smart. They're going out there and they're basically making people feel very comfortable with taking money from them in a loan. And then what they're doing is they are saying, okay, you're in debt now, but don't worry about paying us back money. We'll take other things. We'll take this piece of infrastructure, that piece of infrastructure. We'll improve it. We'll improve it. Don't worry. But we'll make sure that they're not saying this, but China's going to make sure that they have a say in the idea of infrastructure. And we are very, very much behind that in the power curve. We're so just focused to the point of laser focused on little itsy bitsy things that are happening in this society in the United States that we are forgetting we're not the only society in the world. And basically what's happening is that there are other societies that are having an impact on our society. And we are not even meeting that or trying to address that. We're so concerned with, and I'm talking about little aspects. And people might say, oh, Chris, we got this and this and this. All of that makes no difference if we owe another country, because as I point out in this presentation today, countries have found out, and we're going to find out because we have direct contact with these countries, that it's going to affect us. So let's move on here. So let's talk about, first of all, about a Sudan summary. So everyone knows about what's happening in Sudan, but I think what we forget, and I think we need to address it, is where is Sudan? Right? Everyone sits back and says, "Oh yeah, it's something I have to do with Sudan, but I'm not sure." Yeah, it must not be important because it's not near. It's in Africa, right? So if it's in Africa, nobody really cares. Well, guess what? We should care. So this is Sudan right here. This is the country of Sudan. Right below it is an area called South Sudan. Now I know about this area personally because I was on a deployment in a nearby African country, and had a lot of, a daily briefing basically on this area when it was undergoing, let's see, warring between two major generals in this area. Warring two major generals in this area. It's funny how history repeats itself. And and one of the reasons that we got involved from the standpoint of trying to just, I guess, monitor the situation is because we went in to take some people out of Juba, which is right here, and they ended up shooting the tribal factions ended up shooting at the aircraft and hit a U.S. military person. So that is all of a sudden we got involved because that situation. So what's happening in Sudan is hopefully, and I think it's working. Is Khartoum is the capital of Sudan, and you can see here how, I mean, you see all this area. I mean, this is not, you don't see any green, do you? But not much green here, right? More green down in this area, not much green in here at all. So I mean, because it is basically part of the Sahara. This is Sahara Desert, folks. Largest desert in the world. Here it is. Boom. There it is. Other than Siberia, which they call a desert, but basically it's tundra. But basically, a lot of desert here, right? And look where Sudan is. And interestingly enough, where's Egypt? Right above it, right? Right above it. And where's Libya? Right here. So Libya problems, right? And Egypt shares a border, a very large border with Sudan. And look, here's the Nile River, goes right through here, all the way down, all the way down, all the way down. And they have the Blue Nile and the White Nile, right? So this is where all this happens. I mean, there's a lot. There's not that much water here. Look how much water is here, right? Here of green, but look where it stopped. I mean, it's not much in the way of um, real honest water in this area. So that's why it's really difficult at times. This area here, interesting enough, is called the Parrot's Head because it looks like a parrot head. That's what it looks like. So that's in South Sudan. So it kind of juts up into Sudan. I mean, so that's basically what's happening there in Sudan. So now, should we be concerned? Right? Should we be concerned? Well, first of all, Sudan had an inflation rate of 2021 of 382%. 382%. I mean, what's ours? What's ours like? Something like what? Uh, 4, right? 382% for Sudan. What is it now? Well, now it's about 63.3%. 63.3%, which is considered to be, just, look, I mean, in 2 years, boom, it's gone down. But still, it's at 63.3% inflation. So, I mean, at one point, that 382%, that was the largest in the world. Sudan had the largest inflation in the world. There was another country, I think it was Slovenia, had the next, as was number 2 there. But I think basically, I mean, this is not good, 382%. So that's where you have this situation where you sit back and you go, geez, you have that type of inflation, and then you have water issues, and then you have this civil war that's taking place and between 2 generals, and it's just killing a lot of people, and that's really what's going on. So I mean, this is basically Sudan's summary right now. This right here, this right here, this link takes you to an area where China, the title of it is, does China have a role play helping end Sudan's crisis? So does it have a role to play? Well, first of all, and I think this is important, is Sudan and China have been trading partners. And Sudan has been providing up to 5% of fuel to China. So there's all of a sudden you sit back and you go, and there's China. Boom, there's China again, right there. You don't even have to go one degree. Bang, it's right there, right? So China has a say in Sudan and what exactly is happening there. So is there a relationship between China and Sudan? Oh yeah, there is. And they export nuts, and they export fruits, other things to China. So I mean, there is a relationship there. And it's something that we have to be concerned about. We should be concerned about. So NPR, and this is from NPR. You can go take a look at this stuff. So let's take a look at Sri Lanka. Okay, let's forget Sudan for a second because the media is just focused on Sudan, right? Boom. Let's go to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka was brought up a while back because of some issues with their economy. And where is Sri Lanka? Well, Sri Lanka is over here, right? Here it is right here. So there's Sri Lanka. And we sit back and we go, well, okay, Chris, so what? Well, here's where there's an issue. See, Sri Lanka has a lot of ports here, right? Got a lot of ports, all these different ports. And Sri Lanka owes, um, they owe some to, they owe some money to China. As a matter of fact, they owe a lot of money to China because they Sri Lanka actually they defaulted on their debt. Boom, you know. So now all of a sudden you have Sri Lanka owing China, and China says, I'll tell you what, rather than you paying us back because we know you guys are having problems and there's an issue there, whatever else. I'll tell you what, we won't collect money because you guys are already having issues with money, whatever else. We'll just take one of your ports. We'll just take one of your ports. That's okay. So we'll take over your ports. We'll build it up. We'll do other things, and then and then you don't have to worry about your debt anymore. Or we'll take off 20 billion, whatever it is. You have a little bit of debt, but most of it will go away because we'll work that out. Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. So we're gonna Sri Lanka turned in the port, boom, gave it to them. Here's your, here it is right here, foreignpolicy.com. You can, as May 5th. So it's relatively recent, 2023. And talking about the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Geez, how many times have I brought that up? And how, all of a sudden all these countries are, the countries are basically defaulting on their debt and they're having to pay China. So China gets their grip on the infrastructure, in this case on a port in Sri Lanka. All right, what about Angola, Djibouti, Ethiopia, Kenya? So let's take a look at all these. Angola, Djibouti, Ethiopia, and Kenya. So let's make sure we know where each of these things are, because that's no good if you don't know it, right? So where's Angola? Let's take a look and see where Angola. Well, Angola, first of all, is in Africa. So we're going to go to Africa, right? And we sit back and we say, well, first of all, where's Djibouti? There's Djibouti right there. Ding! There it is, right there. What's the capital of Djibouti? Real quick. Djibouti. There it is right there. Yada dee. Does the U.S. have presence in Djibouti? Yes, they do. Camp Lemonnier in Djibouti. As a matter of fact, if you can almost see it. It's a this is the town right here. But you can actually see Camp Lemonnier here because we share it with the airfield here. So it's a you can see some of this, and this is interesting right here. See that patch of green right there? See that patch of green? Yeah, that's patch of green right here is the soccer field. Well, soccer field, football field, whatever you want to call it. So that's the only piece of green, is because this is what is that? Fake grass. That's the only green. That's the only green in Djibouti. Period. Other than little patches of green, whatever it is. I always thought that was really funny in that area. And this has been built up like crazy, even since there have been other people there. So it's really interesting how all this is building up. And there was an area that was right here. It was right here. Was it right here? Right around this area? That was for sale at one point in time. That the U.S. I think took that. So that's Djibouti, and that is our U.S. presence practically in Africa. So this is Djibouti. So that's what we're talking about there. Angola is interesting because if you take a look at the different countries. See, that's a Horn of Africa. The reason it's Horn of Africa is because it's got a horn there. So the Gulf of Aden. Remember all the piracy? That's all that was taken along. It was all along in here somewhere, all along Somalia. So so that is that. I've already talked to you about South Sudan. Was the other one? Kenya and Ethiopia. So Kenya, Ethiopia is here. Remember that Eritrea is here, right? Remember Eritrea took that entire coastline, so now they're having problems up in this area still. But of course, media doesn't cover that. Not unless not unless people die. So here's Kenya. And you see how a lot more green is going in here. So let's take a look at Kenya for a reason. So Ethiopia, Kenya, and Djibouti. Let's just take a look at all three of those. All three of those are in debt to China. Now, interestingly enough, here's Uganda and Tanzania, and I already covered an area where up in this area they are going to put a pipeline for the French with China. Interesting enough, the French just announced today that they are supporting Ukraine with tanks and whatever else. But they're still building this. They're still building this oil transportation platform, which is basically going to be pipeline down Uganda, down across that area. I don't know whether they're going to go across Lake Victoria or what, all the way across to this area right in here, Port of Tonga, I think is where they're going. Yeah, I think that's right, the Port of Tonga. So, and they're going to take this and they're going to move this. Now, how are they going to get it to France? Well, they're going to take it around to the Horn of Africa, up through the Red Sea, right here, right? This is the. They're going to take it up through the Suez Canal, through the Med, all the way to France. Sorry, up in this area, Port of France. So that's where they're going to take it. So interestingly enough, that's what's going to happen there. But also interestingly enough is they're going to have to make sure that they get past these pirates with all that oil tankers. So it'd be interesting to see. I mean, literally, you're talking about right on the coastline. Here's Somalia right here. Bad situation here in Somalia, and it doesn't get any better. And then what's going to happen is they're going to start hijacking these tankers. But that's another story. So basically we have it, and they just talked about the Wagner Group, and the Wagner Group is in Mali, and everyone talks about Mali like it's out of the way somewhere here. But basically what happens is that the Western Sahara of Morocco, and Mali is located. I just saw it. It's located right here. So here's Mali, and guess what? The Wagner Group, Russia, which is aligned with China, hence that 2 degrees of separation there. They have the Wagner Group have people in Mali that are protecting areas and protecting resources and all that stuff. But basically, what's happening is that I think it was Al Jazeera that said that they were happy to have them because they were stopping the infighting that was happening in Mali. So anyways, that's another story for another time. So that's what we're talking about. And when we talk about Angola, and I think this is really interesting to talk about, is Angola has always been kind of this really very tumultuous situation in Angola, always. Luanda and the Benguela, Lubango, all these areas, really bad situations, always in intertribal relationships, all that stuff. But Angola owes China. So now what do we have? Well, we have Angola, which is on the west side. We have Uganda, east side. Tanzania, east side. Kenya, east side. Ethiopia, east side. Djibouti, east side. So now what's happening is China, you can see, look at the area that they're going to encompass. They're going to encompass, other than South Sudan, they're going to encompass this whole area practically, except for Somalia. I mean, and they're growing. So, I mean, we sit back and we take this stuff and we say, oh, it's no big deal. In the meantime, we're sitting back and trying to figure out, what we're doing in with our country, which I get, I understand, we have to focus inward, be able to focus outward. But basically what happens is when you owe China billions of dollars, they're going to come collect. And I want to see what's going to happen because we owe China money. I know we owe China money. So what's going to happen when China comes to collect? Are we going to sit back and go, no, we're not going to pay you? Or are we going to, how is that going to work? So the SCO is growing. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization is growing, and it's growing in leaps and bounds. India is trying to play both sides of this. I do not trust India at all because anybody that plays both sides, that tries to remain neutral, has a political agenda themselves. Basically, what happens is the SCO, China in particular, has both Pakistan and India as their possible memberships. So I want to see how that, China thinks of themselves as big peacemaker, but I think China doesn't want to maintain peace. China wants to have countries where they can get in and get infrastructure. Their empire building is not through military force. It's not through any of that. What's going to happen is they are going to take countries by infrastructure slowly but surely, and then they're going to put their fist around it. And this is what's going to happen with this. And we got India they're aligned with the U.S., Australia, and Japan in the quadrilateral security dialogue. So the QSD they're part of, and they're part of the SCO, which is in complete opposite of what the QSD is all about. So what does it mean for us? Basically, what's going to go on is we're going to have an issue where we're going to have to start making choices as to what we want to do with this whole situation. Um, uh, Zelensky just met with Germany. He met with Italy. He met with France. He did the world tour, European tour. I get it. You got to get money, right? To continue a war that doesn't seem like it's ever going to end. I mean, it's counteroffensive reminds you of World War I trench warfare. But this is what's happening. So right now, based on population density, the United States is giving about the same as Canada, but monetarily, we're giving a ton of money. I mean, almost literally a ton of money to Ukraine and to other countries that need it, as well as trying to do stuff here within the domestic area that is turning out to be a problem. So that is what's happening there. And I think it's very important to understand again what we're talking about when we talk about the world. And I mean, it's a situation where when you have India and they always say, look, we're bordered by basically two enemies, which I doubt very much. To Pakistan, which they consider to be an enemy, it's bordered here. But then you have China here, which is you got plenty of mountains here that are that everyone's got to cross to be able to get to the other area. So that's where you have this this India issue. But then you have BRICS, right, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And BRICS, BRICS between the BRICS and SCO, you're talking about a pretty large membership. And it's interesting because one media outlet compared BRICS and SCO to the UN, but they said basically that it's more talk than action, which is true. In fact, we used to call NATO meetings "no action, talk only." It's a situation where it's a really interesting uh, it's an interesting harmony between China and all the other countries that have something to do with that. So I just wanted to bring that up. I wanted to bring up the idea that we've just went through what, 3 continents, and in all those continents you can see that there's a lot of reasons to be worried, especially when we talk about China. And I'm going to keep harping on this, and I hope that people don't get sick of it. But the worldview has to do with the worldview. But if there's a country that's trying to make their light shine brighter than everyone else's, then we have to focus on that. And basically what's happening is China is sitting back and they're doing a lot of different things, being very persuasive and pervasive in their basically global domination. And that's what they want. And guess what? They have the money, they have the people, they have the resources to be able to do this. And they have no intention, and this is my opinion, they have no intention of leveling up to any climate accords whatsoever. I mean, if you think that China is going to give up their industrial base so that climate change can somehow happen, you are sorely, sorely mistaken. As in the book Prisoner's Dilemma by William Poundstone. I've said it before, I've said it again. You need to read the book. Is basically there's two ways humans interact. One is cooperation, the other one is defect. China's defecting. They're sitting back saying, "Yep, we believe in climate change. Yep, we're right there with you guys. You go first." And it's a situation where they're not in any way, shape, or form going to come off of that, whatever it is, 10 million or 10 million billion tons of whatever, CO2. I mean, they're number one in the world for CO2 emissions. And I have no prediction ever that they're ever going to decrease that to somehow placate, because that's exactly what they think they would do, placate countries that basically owe them. I mean, it just makes no sense to me why a powerful country such as China would sit back and say, "Yep, we'll kowtow to anybody else because hey, we want this climate change thing to work." They could care less. I mean, there are Chinese, I'm sure, just like Americans, that sit back and say, "Yep, climate change, climate change, climate change." But let me tell you something: the powers that be within China, they don't care. They don't care. It's literally about their country and what the country's all about. So on that note, I will bid you good day, and thank you so much for watching the worldview. I know that we hit a lot of things today, a lot of different countries, but that's what the worldview is about. The worldview is literally about all the things that have to do with the world. So we're trying to hit different parts of the world and give you a solid background as much as possible. I put the references in there. Please go see them. Go take a look. Don't believe me. Go out and take a look for yourself. And I think that's important. If the United States of America, specifically the citizens, don't start going out and finding out about what the world is and what it's about, we're going to be left behind. We're going to be left behind. And along with civics and some of the other areas, you have to make sure that what you do is you take a look at geography and you take a look at geopolitical and cultural aspects that have to do with that. And if you do it, you know, I think what's going to happen is people are going to, as they become more and more understanding and more smart, just informed about what's going on, I think that their worldview will be much expanded. And suddenly they'll realize that what's happening is that we are so ingrained and so self-absorbed with this United States cultural, whatever you want to call it, is that we are sitting back and allowing countries that are basically less freedom oriented than we are to go out and empire build. If that's what we want to do, then that's what America is going to be. America is always going to be that one step behind. We did it in World War II. We sat back and we internalized everything and we tried to be self-absorbed. And look what happened there. So we got to be really careful about how we do things. And that, ladies and gentlemen, has to do with having a worldview. This is Chris Greco signing off, another Worldview episode. Thank you so much for watching. And please, folks, try to understand more about the world, and you will have a wider worldview.